This is Recruiting Roundtable. We talk to HR and talent acquisition leaders about thoughtful topics in the world of recruiting. For today's discussion, we're going to be talking about scaling growth in 2024. 2023 was a challenging year for many in the talent acquisition space, with continued layoffs due to uncertain economic climate. While some companies were able to weather the storm and see continued growth, we have a couple of them in today's session, so excited for that. We have an amazing panel. This is like an all-star team here to discuss their experiences in 2023 and what they are looking forward to in the new year. Joining us are Rich Adao, Head of Talent Acquisition, Anyscale, Lance Phillips, Director of Talent Acquisition, Electronic Arts, and Loren Guerra, Head of Recruitment at Rocket Science. Gentlemen, thank you so much for making the time.
Thanks for having us.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Great. So as tradition, we always start with some intros. So please briefly discuss your role and a short intro to your company. Let's start with Lance.
Yeah, Lance Phillips with Electronic Arts. I oversee, my team does recruiting for most of our action role play games, primarily in North America. Not sports related games. So I've got a peer who does that, but many of our action role play games.
Great. And Rich?
I'm Rich Adao, Head of Talent at Anyscale. The TLDR on what we do, we are part of the AI and machine learning craze, where we're the underpinning technology to help other companies build their infrastructure to be able to launch their complex, expensive, and rather large clusters. So think of us as the picks and shovels of AI and machine learning companies and can help everybody out.
Very relevant technology right now. So excited to learn more about what you're doing over at Anyscale, Rich. And Loren, someone I know very, very well. Loren, great to see you again. Tell us a little bit about yourself and Rocket Science.
Yeah, so I am the head of recruiting for Rocket Science. We are a co-dev startup, about 20 months old, and we work with the large AAA game publishers as a co-dev on their games. So we don't own any IPs, we don't own any titles. We just act as consultants for some outsourcing needs. And we based out of upstate New York, but we have a new office that we're ramping up in Cardiff, Wales as well. And then I get to sit in Austin, Texas. So it's nice.
Awesome. Thank you, Loren. And lastly, my name is Sean Huynh. I'm Managing Director at Rocket, where we have an in-house AI-powered sourcing tool, which enables our recruiters to spend less time reviewing thousands of profiles and more time doing, the good stuff, which is speaking to candidates, which in turn helps our clients hire 2 times faster. All right, so let's take a look back a little bit at 2023. I think depending on which company you're in and your personal situation, there was wildly differing kind of experiences. Where did your respective companies see the most growth in terms of hiring in 2023? I'd love to hear kind of where the hiring was last year, and then we can start to look forward into 2024. So maybe we'll start with Rich.
Yeah, some quick background to know is we entering 2023, we're about, I think, 90 employees worldwide. Probably 80% of us was engineering, and we're pre-IPO Series C, still going into the year with looking for product market fit. So most of the year was focused on building and continuing the build of eng and product en route to product market fit. And towards Q4, we're shifting more as we acquire product market fit to be able to grow our go-to-market function. So all of that's getting built as we speak. So 80% engineering to start the year. That's slowly coming down to 70% as we're hiring more go-to-market folks like marketing, account executives, and the operations. So it depends on what time of year is where the growth was. So beginning of the year, a lot of eng, a lot of machine learning engineers, a lot of infra, and then towards the end now into next year, a lot of sales reps. We're looking at probably hiring 25 to 35 sales reps next year, and that's starting from a small mighty team of 3. So
wow,
that's
exciting times.
Yeah,
times.
Gotta be.
Nice.
What about you, Loren? What did hiring look like last year?
2023 was it was an interesting year. I was actually at a different startup in 2023. based out of San Mateo. And at that time, had about a team of 10-ish. And over time, we're just having problems with some product sales. So my team dwindled down to just kind of being me. And the overall organization had some hits and misses. Engineering hiring went down completely. There was more of a focus on sales and marketing in different regions around the world. And actually, I ended up departing from them a few months back, about 3 or 4 months ago. And that's when I joined Rocket Science, which is the codev gaming startup. We're on a completely different path. We're actually anticipated to hire. So we're about 60 people globally right now, and we need to hire about 100 people this next year for 2024. Most of it is going to be all engineering focused, and it's exciting because I'm going to build another team up, which is great. Put a new ATS in place, which is great, and kind of make things happen. But it's completely different for 2024, and I think what makes what we do a little unique, considering we're codev, is that a lot of places out there, Epic, for example, they had some big cuts, but they still need to have some work done. To have production needs to be completed, but they don't want the headcount, so they're turning around and looking for consultants to come in, such as us, to get the project finished and to make things happen. But it's on a project basis and it's not on a headcount basis. So it puts us in a very unique situation right now.
And spoiler alert, I was working with Loren quite heavily, mostly in 2022, helping you hire most of those engineers.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting. We kind of have almost like a parallel career arc where, we were working together really, really heavily through late 2021 into 2022 for that year. We hired a ton of engineers, and then just like the business changed, like the business landscape where you were and also where I was at the time changed. And now we've both kind of landed in new opportunities where there's going to be huge growth. So I wish you all the best, Loren. And I'm happy to see, you in a great new situation.
Thank you. No, I'm excited, man.
Lance, what's going on at EA?
Yeah. Well, we, as in case the audience doesn't know, Electronic Arts is one of those AAA game companies that Loren's referring to. And so we do use codev companies just like Loren. So that's certainly a part of what we do. We're a little bit different size than Rich and Loren. So Electronic Arts is about a 14,000 person company, and we've got operations like them across the globe. We've seen quite a bit of hiring this year, just as we did last year, in areas of technical. So software development, all types of software development, non-tech, so creative type roles like directors, tech directors, game developers, or game designers, tech artists, animation, things like that. And then corporate functions, because as a bigger company, we've got quite a few corporate functions. We've grown in all of those areas. I would say from my particular line of vision, some of the real core game development functions, like software development, like technical artists, like animators, those are key areas of growth that we've seen.
It's interesting. So we do have two people from the gaming industry here, so I want to stay on that topic for a sec. There's been a lot of upheaval. I mean, a lot of layoffs in tech. I did a little bit of research. I think there's about 6,000 gaming jobs lost last year, and a few studios shuttered. Volition, I think, is one of the best known ones. They're known for their Saints Row franchise. They shuttered their operations. There were a number of other indie studios. Have you felt those effects? I know that EA continued to grow last year and continue to add, but are you feeling some of those effects, or from the executive level, is there some concern around, maybe we need to scale back hiring to maintain costs?
I think we've seen those effects in multiple ways. So I think probably with all companies, and unfortunately some of those that have shuttered or downsized in a significant way, obviously that's really hard on a lot of people. I think for all companies, though, it's forced companies in the game industry and beyond to really think about what are our key priorities and invest in those key priorities. And so I think that's forced some companies to make hard decisions that maybe during the pandemic weren't quite as hard of decisions, because as Loren or maybe the two of you have had visibility to, gaming spiked a lot during the pandemic. People were at home, people played games a lot. So we really saw this spike. And then coming out of the pandemic, that's been some rockier waters. So I think it's forced some hard decisions, even in companies like Electronic Arts, where we've grown.
Mm-hmm. And Loren, what about yourself? Have you seen like new opportunities arise? I mean, Rocket Science looking to hire 100 engineers this year. That's an amazing opportunity.
No, it is amazing, and um, we're, as I mentioned earlier, we're in a unique situation because the Epics of the world, or even EA. We don't work with EA right now, but the other AAA studios that we work with, they're looking to, like I said, take advantage of our type of consulting, from a cost perspective. So it kind of works out in our favor right now. One thing I've also noticed, and Lance, I want to get your thoughts on this also, is during times of during hard times, it's interesting that industries that don't get impacted real heavily and actually have a bit of an uptick is stuff like alcohol sales or tobacco sales, and even gaming per se. Because people are looking for a release, looking for something different. So even now with some troubled waters that are out there in the economy, people are kind of turning to stuff like gaming. So it's really kind of given us that boost up.
Yeah, I think so too, and we definitely saw that during the pandemic, right? So that was clearly a key inflection point and a key spike. And I think one of the things that we see with gaming is it's still, and maybe continues to be, and maybe grows to be even more, a leading entertainment outlet for a lot of people. So we'll see probably the definition of gaming may even change over time as we think about esports, or we think about the way that people interact with games. And I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit more later, but absolutely, I agree totally with that.
Yeah.
So let's switch gears a little bit to Rich and what's happening over at Anyscale. So obviously with ChatGPT launching in November 2022, there was like just crazy amounts of media and just attention on AI in general. Did that event of ChatGPT launching and becoming basically ubiquitous in like one day, did that have a material effect on Anyscale's business? And did you see effects in how that affected your hiring strategy moving into 2023?
Yeah, 1,000%. So first off, OpenAI does use our underlying open source technology, Ray, which Anyscale also built back in 2017, 2018. So as soon as they launched ChatGPT, the world just literally changed, and it brought scaling these machine learning models to the forefront, and people discovering that it takes a lot of resources to launch these models and run them, and it's expensive. And so that's exactly what we solve for. So think of Anyscale as I'm really going to oversimplify this, but it's the software version of NVIDIA. So NVIDIA is doing the hardware play, we're doing the software play to make machine learning scalable. So most definitely, we rode that wave. We were already a company building this infrastructure before OpenAI launched their product. But what I will say with what you gentlemen were talking earlier with economic downturn, we were in a unique situation where in 2022, we did receive $100 million to grow our company in that Series C. But no question, the economics of what's going on around us, we were not tone deaf to what was going on. So it absolutely did curb our behavior, where in past years, most companies with that kind of money would have just go, hire more recruiters. And you're looking at headcount of like 100, 200, 300 people and literally 2xing your company. We spent last year and this year really judicious with how we spent money and made sure that we made our processes really scalable, acquiring tools that when we have to 10x any process, that yes, we can hire 5 people today, but what if that 5 turns into 50? What does that process look like? So we spent a lot of time to invest into tools like ChartHop, Gem, things like that. So by the time we're ready to run, which is now, we are going to run efficiently. We weren't just burning through the money just for the sake of it. So
Yeah.
I think that was something that I learned in my career, because in the last 10, 12 years in tech, it was always just go, go, go. You got the money, let's go spend it, build up recruiting, hire as many recruiters as you can, as fast as you can. But we definitely learned a new way of how to be efficient with what you got and not just overspend, because we've all learned our lesson of what happens to companies when you do that.
Yeah, for sure. And so let's talk about scaling your talent acquisition team. It sounds like to different degrees, all three of you gentlemen will be hiring. Rich on the go-to-market sales side, Loren on the engineering side, Lance as well on the more development and design side. When you're in high growth mode, how do you typically like to scale your talent acquisition teams? Is it, I like to just hire more in-house people? I'll, engage with an RPO vendor, maybe get some contractors, maybe I'll hire an agency and give them some contingency roles. Like, what's kind of generally been your playbook when you're in high growth mode? We'll start with Rich, since you're still in the spotlight.
Yeah. We talked about this the other day, right, Sean?
Mm-hmm.
I think the instinct is, I'm still old school. I think the in-house folks can sell your company's value better than any outsourced recruiter can. But when headcount is needed immediately, you do have to find a way to get the engine started, because to find any even decent recruiter, even in this softer market, it does take a few weeks to get them hired and ramped up. And you don't want to waste that time, because that could be 4, 5, 6 weeks. So I do see scenarios where we can engage with a contractor or a small piece of an RPO to get us going in those 4, 5, 6 weeks while we do find the FTE recruiter. So I think it's a little bit of a hybrid approach, which is what I did at Anyscale. At Udemy 3 years ago. On the interim, you go a little bit of RPO, some contractors to get you going, and then all the while you are beefing up your bench with the FTE recruiters. So that was a playbook that I ran back then. I think that's probably what we're going to do now too.
That sounds great. Lance, I know that you have a particular strategy where at least your sourcing team becomes very ingrained in understanding kind of the technical requirements and the profile of the candidates you're looking for. Can you walk us through that? Because I thought that was really interesting when you explained that to me in our initial call.
Sure. I would also just say I get really, I get really excited about the tools that Rich talks about too. So,
We'll get to the
cool.
technology. That's the next point for sure.
That sounds good. Yeah, I think from a staff standpoint, one of the things that scaling has allowed us to do, both currently at Electronic Arts and in some of my past, has been to think about specialty teams, teams like sourcing, for instance, or early career talent, and how do we think about those specialty teams as a way to help us scale? So, for example, one of the ways that a sourcing team can really help is to grow deep connections, deep expertise in areas that we know we're going to be hiring for a fair amount. So those areas we talked about, like development, like technical artists, like animation, things like that. Sourcing allows us to get out ahead of that a little bit better and develop relationships and understand candidates a little bit better in the moment and sometimes ahead of time where we know that we're going to spike. So I think developing specialty organizations or specialty parts of the organization like sourcing for us ends up being a key way to scale. Right.
That's great. And Loren, I know, what about you? Well, typically, if you're kind of starting in this new role at Rocket Science, you're gonna be hiring 100 engineers. How do you solve this problem? Like, what are the tools in your toolkit that are gonna help you solve this?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been very, very cautious about hiring, and adding people to the team, almost to the point of sometimes not even hiring enough, just because I'm always just concerned. And that said, what we do as consultants over at Rocket Science, it doesn't give us the ability and flexibility to say, okay, here's our product roadmap this next year. We know that we're going to be launching this, and this product. So we're going to need, X number of front end, X number of back end, X number of game engineers. We're not able to do that because we don't own the IP. We are more of a fluid organization where, as consultants, we don't know what headcount we need until we're about to sign that project. Okay. So it puts us in a very, kind of difficult staffing situation because I don't know, do I need to actually hire 100 people this next year based on our product roadmap? Or is this purely a forecasting projection, which it really is based on the goals we're going to hire or the wins we're going to have? That said, I'm having to build like a virtual bench per se, more of a virtual community of folks. So for me, sourcing is going to be huge because my sourcers that I'm going to be bringing on board are going to be establishing those relationships, getting people excited, and kind of continuing those virtual bench scenarios with them. So when we're ready to get a project underway, and we're ready to pull that trigger, we can say, hey, we've been talking to you for 2 or 3, 4 months. We have this thing coming up. We'd love to engage with you now and kind of take it to the next level. It just makes things a little more challenging and difficult on my end, because we're really building something from scratch and just not going out and hiring, knowing that we need to hire X number of developers, what have you. But I think from a standpoint of the organization, sourcing, like you, Lance, it's really building that up. So.
Yeah, building the relationship long term, because it's interesting, right, Loren? Like you want to build a relationship with the developer, but you don't know exactly when the work's coming. But when the work comes, it comes fast and furious, and you need the developer like yesterday, right? So
exactly,
I've been there. I've been there too. So it's a tough challenge, but I mean, I know you'll be up to it. I'm sure you'll do amazing with it.
So.
Let's stay. Oh, you will. If you need help, let me know. If let's say the topic of like technology and AI specifically is a hot button topic, there's a number of different ways AI is improving, and helping recruitment teams become more efficient. There's whether it's on the sourcing piece or on the candidate experience piece, or even acting as like a knowledge base for your in-house teams. Are you within your existing organizations leveraging AI, or if not, like what are some pieces of technology that you're leveraging that are really driving a lot of value? We'll start with Loren since you're up.
Yeah. So for me, I was introduced to AI in recruiting, years ago when I went to a ERE convention in New Orleans, and there was this company there. I forget who their name was, but basically they were like the first thing I ever saw with AI, where they're able to say, okay, we created this AI where we can go through and look at people's resumes or anything, and basically we can know when they're ready to find a new job, and we can look at their history and look at their footprint and everything. And thought that was so fascinating back in the day. So I've kind of stayed interested in it and everything. I am using a small AI company right now called Hero Hunt, out of, I think, Holland, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically an AI sourcing tool that goes through and is looking at, LI and GitHub and Stack Overflow and pulling things up for me and everything. It's a hit or miss. The price was right. It's hit or miss. We'll see. But there is this new AI I'm looking at that to me seems really interesting because it's an organization called Flex out of the UK. And what they do is they take gamers' gaming attributes. Okay, so when you're a gamer and you're playing, you have these different levels of attributes, whether it's being a leader or being a team member or being just whatever these different attributes you have, and you gain points and you level up to these different attribute levels, right? And they're natural and fluid on them. Well, what this company does is they basically take people's gaming or attributes, and they turn around and they match them to the company of where you're at, and they find out whether or not, based on their attributes, if they're going to be a match to the organization. Kind of like an extra vetting piece. It's very unique and different. So it's something I'm kind of just toying with in gaming. I mean, they're very beta right now. But I think AI in general is going to really kind of open things out for our side.
It's very interesting. It's very like verticalized, specialized approach to using AI, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Rich, what about you? You mentioned Gem. I can't remember, you mentioned something else too, but what are some of the tools in your stack?
Yeah, so Lever for ATS, Chart for headcount planning, org design, like
Chart yeah, that was the one.
Yeah, and then Modern Loop for scheduling, Searchlight for references, Checker for background checks. The kind of tool I'm shopping for right now, I'm looking at a scheduling tool that can help with transcription with the use of AI. And I'm honestly right now debating, I actually have a meeting in a couple hours to debate MetaView versus Gong. And that basically records the interviews, helps transcribe, and AI will help match the content of the interview to the competencies you're trying to evaluate. And so I'm going to make a decision pretty soon on MetaView versus Gong. And there's also another tool called Aspect in that realm. So I think that could be a helpful tool. I have used tools like Intello in the past, which this is before they got into AI. I don't even know how well that tool is today. And then Teamable, which was dabbling in using some AI in the referral kind of funnel. So I'm shopping right now, to say the least. There's a few out there, and I am looking for that magical search and discovery AI tool. I get pitched by AEs with different tools every day. I'm just trying to pick a winner out there right now. So that's what
It's interesting you mentioned Gong. I used Gong. I was an account executive. I used Gong to record sales meetings. I didn't actually think you could do it for, I guess, why not? You could do it for interviews too, right? So,
well, they're launching the recruiting tool now. They're launching.
Okay, got you. All right.
It doesn't launch until to the public until I think March is what they said, and they're only offering it to existing Gong sales customers, which will want.
It's so interesting. I don't know. Maybe it's like the whole you can't teach an old dog new tricks thing. But I remember when I first got introduced to the Gong, and then like they record the Zoom call and they give me transcription. I'm like, I don't really want the transcription of the whole meeting. I just want like bullet point notes, like old school. Can you give me that? But I don't know. Maybe I'm just, like I said, it's old dog new tricks kind of thing. Lance, what about you? What do you got in, or what are you looking at, or how are you leveraging AI technology in your recruiting stack?
To the conversation you two both were having, BrightHire is another great tool at beyond transcription, so maybe more than what you need. Another tool in the candidate engagement, candidate experience place would be Candidate FYI that I really like. What I thought I might bring into the conversation too, and we have the advantage maybe of this might be the advantage of a bigger company, but as we think about ChatGPT and tools like that, we and a number of bigger companies certainly have our own model of ChatGPT that we use in-house. So as we think about sourcing, for example, there are definitely ways that that's useful in creating search strings, in creating messaging to candidates. I have mixed feelings about using AI to message candidates, but those are certainly ways that we could use that tool. And then you talk about the research aspect too. Gosh, we use that internal AI tool a lot to research, to create scenarios where we might lean into a certain talent or targeting a certain skill set or segment of the market, things like that. So that would be another way that we would use AI even beyond what you were talking about, or different than what you're talking about.
So Lance, you mentioned you're a little bit hesitant on using AI to message a candidate. And I totally understand that that sentiment. Can you unpack that a little bit for us? Why do you feel that way?
This would go back years and years, but I think we've all seen situations where sourcers or recruiters blast candidates. And so many candidates get the same message or similar messages, and when you get those many times. AI can be much better at that, where we can personalize a message. And I believe that personalized message is really, really important. I want that if somebody's reaching out to me, and I think every candidate would want that. So that would be my caution in using AI tools to message candidates, would just be to pay attention to what is the message. Are we messaging the way that we want? Are we reaching out in a relatively personal way? That's my concern.
Yeah, I know you're huge on candidate experience. So we'll just stay with you, and then I want to ask the other gentleman on the panel. Candidate experience is so important to you, and I know this. And I still, to this day, hear so often about candidates being ghosted. And it's unfortunate, and I know a lot of companies try not to do it. And I know candidate experience is so important to you. Can you just walk us through a little bit more about why you feel the candidate experience is such an important piece of what EA is doing?
Yeah, you're going to get me going here, so I'll try to keep it short. My dream, honestly, my dream in the hiring process is for every candidate that comes into a hiring process to leave that hiring process in a better place than where they started. That's my dream. I think we're all probably making progress towards that. which is good. So I think there are tools, including AI, that help us along that. So it helps us, for example, when we get applicants, we can message those applicants really easily right now, and if nothing else, just let them know we got their application. We can use AI and other tools to help us with scheduling and engagement through the process. We can use tools for pulse surveys. We're doing that now and wanting to do more of pulse surveys through the process. So pinging candidate and also pinging a hiring manager at multiple places through the process or after they get hired to just ask for that feedback, because we can't improve on things that we don't know about. So those would be the types of things that I get pretty passionate about. And I would hope then, as we think about where we leave candidates, hopefully we give them more tools, more knowledge, more connections. Maybe it's actually the job, which would be the ultimate, those sorts of things that leave people in a better place.
And Loren, I'm going to go to you because you're going to be building more longer tail relationships with candidates. What are some of the things you're going to be implementing to ensure that when a candidate speaks to you in December, they're still going to remember you in March or April when you call them about the job?
Yeah, so we just implemented a new ATS called Ashby. It's fairly new on the market, but it's pretty solid, from what I've used it. And Ashby started out as basically a metrics module that people could take and plug into their ATS, and they expanded beyond that, built an entire system. And Ashby has the ability to have a built-in CMS for us to stay in contact with our candidates and do drip campaigns, as well as the ability to have automated surveys go out so we can start pulling statistics and metrics around candidate experience.
Yeah.
I haven't implemented those just yet because we just put this thing in the books a couple months ago and we're still trying to figure everything out. But our goal is to get this whole system up and running. That said, one thing that we're also going to be trying to do is building more of a, like I said, a virtual community, and getting folks involved with us either from a gaming perspective or just knowledge in general and everything. But I think Richard Branson said it right, that today's candidate is tomorrow's consumer. And he preached this really heavily at Virgin and basically said that a bad candidate experience can, result in, $10+ million in loss annually because of bad candidate experiences. And they're like, you know what? They were a jerk to me. I'm not going to buy their product. I'm not going to recommend their product. I am not going to do anything positive with them moving forward. And that's, for me, is a huge impactor, especially with such a small studio that we have right now, and I think one of the best things you can get, which I've seen happen and I love it, is that even when you tell a candidate, man, you did great, but you did not get the opportunity, let's keep that door open. And those candidates are like, you know what? I didn't get it, but let me recommend somebody else who may be a better fit than me for this role. And that to me says, okay, we did the job right. If they're willing to recommend somebody else, that's so cool. But yeah, I mean, candidate experience, and it's tough. I mean, ghosting is, I don't want to say it's going to happen, but I think that's where the proper ATS comes in with some automated, touch points that come in to keep things going. So it's a thank you for your resume email, or thank you for your time email, or whatever it is. Things like that, just to have those touch points.
Sean, can I jump in on that real quick too?
Of course.
Just one quick add on what Loren, to what you said. I think some of those best systems also, in addition to engaging the candidates near the end of the process, also might make suggestions on where else they could look within a company, and might allow them to passively seek opportunities out into the future too at your company when they come up.
Yeah, definitely.
And I just want to make a comment for all recruiters out there and candidates. If you get ghosted, we're trying not to ghost you. It's just to Loren's point, sometimes there's just so much going on as an agency. Sometimes we're trying to get feedback from our clients, and sometimes they're trying to get feedback from their hiring team. So, a lot of times I honestly feel that ghosting in some situations is not done intentionally. But I do think that every company should try to do a better job to get back to candidates, because it is really like emotionally taxing to be like trying to get a job, especially in this market, and not hearing back. So anyways, Rich, tell me, what are you doing in candidate experience over at Anyscale?
Yeah, first off, no recruiting leader is worth their sweat unless they're passionate about candidate experience as much as Loren and Lance are. So, there we go from some of it. And I mean, the candidate headspace, when they're interviewing with a company, they're waking up in the morning thinking about, I might be working somewhere else in 2-3 months, right? So it's on their minds 24/7, where that recruiter, they're worrying about 30 other candidates along with, John and Jenny Smith. So I and my recruiting team have a bottoms up approach. We look at the people at the very bottom of the funnel towards the end. If it's references, final interview stage, offer stage, you literally look at each name and how can I progress this relationship and process forward? And you take action and you go bottoms up all the way to the very top of the funnel. Like Lance said, you got to use the technology to message candidates if you are going to position them and help yourself get automated there. So I think everybody deserves an answer, and you got to mirror the communication to the action you're taking in your ATS. So if you are rejecting them in the system, send it. It takes 2 seconds. Send them a quick email. And I really believe in transparency in this business, even if it's a no update, literally telling the candidate that, hey, I'm waiting on feedback from the hiring manager. He or she's just been difficult to chase down. They went on this road show. I'm still waiting an answer back. As soon as I hear back, I'll get back to you. Even that alone gives them something. So they at least deserve the no update. So that's kind of where my philosophies lie.
The no
You know what?
update.
And
I love it.
sorry, one thing I want to add to that, Rich, what you're saying, which is key, and I think, we're talking about AI and using technology, but I think also it's us as leaders setting up proper SLAs with our recruiting team and with the hiring managers, et cetera. It's like you have 48 hours to review new candidates that come into the system and empty your bucket. You disposition them or you move them to the next level, whatever it is. Somebody interviews, you have 48 hours to give them feedback and let them know what's going on. This is the SLA. Hiring manager, you have X amount of time to review. So I think some just old school type of SLA agreements are going to outweigh AI, in my opinion. But AI is going to help us with some other things. So,
yeah, I mean, let's be honest. Half of recruiting isn't just speaking to candidates; it's managing the hiring managers, right, and getting them moving along. And we all know how that is. Sometimes it gets political. Sometimes it's literally just getting them to move the needle and giving you an answer so you could take action. And that's like a game within a game, right, guys?
I agree, 100%.
Got a lot of smiles in there. So we're running on time, so I'm going to ask one more question to everyone. If everyone give me 90 to 90 seconds to 2-minute answer. Love to hear how each of you got into recruiting. So I used to have this exercise with my team during team events to get everyone to write down a piece of paper and fill in this sentence. When I grow up, I want to be a blank. And I always made a call that nobody in the room would say recruiter, and I was right 100% of the time. So
I've known one person that grew up wanting to be a recruiter.
Oh, really? Okay, there you go. So
only because their dad had their own agency and he saw how successful he was. He's like, I want to do that.
They saw how much money their dad was making, so they're like, I want some of that. So let's start with Lance. Lance, how did you get into recruiting?
Yeah, I wanted to play baseball, by the way. So for what that's worth. I'm proud looking back onto it, how I got into recruiting. I wasn't clear. I was at that place in a career where I'm like, what do I want to do when I grow up? And so I started having conversations with connections that I had, connections that those connections had, and just asking really genuinely curious questions about what they do and talking about the skills that I have as opposed to, hey, I want this job or I want that job or can you help me with that job? And looking back on it now, I think even now in anything that I do now, if I could approach it with that kind of genuine curiosity, it serves me well when I approach situations like that. And so I entered the field in an office that had 3 engineers who were recruiters in that office, and they were hoping for somebody that was a little more outgoing and could help them interact with folks in a client company. And that ended up being me, although you could argue that maybe I'm not more outgoing. But I found I loved working with engineers, and it catapulted me into this career that's worked out very well.
I totally hear that. I love working with developers too. They're so smart and they always come up with stuff. So that's kind of how I got into, so I can relate. Let's go, Rich. Rich, tell us
Yeah, I
about
mean,
your journey.
recruiting is kind of the less mercenary version of sales, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's a lot of similarities and yet some differences. So my story is out of college, degree in finance and econ. I was a financial analyst first 4 years, and I was mediocre at best at it. And I didn't feel energized by it. It was very clockwork type activities, week to week, month to month, quarter to quarter. I got a call from an agency recruiter trying to place me elsewhere, and into conversations with her. Probably by the fourth or fifth, she just said randomly, "Hey, you sound pretty good on the phone. How about being an accounting and finance recruiter for my agency?" And I was thrown for a loop. I had no idea what that even meant. I had a million questions. She luckily had a million answers, and I just loved the sound of the day to day. It just really sounded like a little bit like contact sports. But there is a win at the end of the tunnel, and at the same time, you're winning as a team, and you're helping companies grow. So I resonated with that, and then that was 2006, and here we are.
Never looked back since.
Yeah.
That's a great story. Loren, what about you? I don't think I've ever asked you this question, have I?
I don't know. That's a good question. Well, I'll tell you about it now, though. How about that?
Sure.
So I got a degree in film when I graduated school, and I worked in the film industry here in Texas for a few years. And when you work in film, you gotta you go project by project, and in between projects, you got to take a temp job, just to make ends meet. And this is back in 1995, so it was a long time ago. And I knew the internet then in '95. I understood it, and I got a call from the temp agency saying, "Hey, we have this large recruiting organization that wants to start using technology for recruiting, and I understand you understand the internet. Can you kind of tell them about it and teach them about this monster thing?" I'm like, "Yeah, I can figure that out." So I did a temp job in a recruiting shop. And it's interesting because when I was working in film, I actually gravitated to doing more casting. So I was working on movies where I was looking at people's headshots and I was hiring extras and body doubles, right? So I would look at their headshot, and their headshot's basically their acting resume. Can you ride a horse? Can you speak Spanish? How tall are you? Et cetera, et cetera. And then when I got put into this organization for recruiting, I said, wait a minute, a resume is the same thing as a headshot, but it's different because it's technical. I understand technology, and this is kind of neat, and it's stable, and it can pay pretty well. I have a stable 9 to 5 job, for most of the year, so this is good. So I kind of ended up just gravitating towards the recruiting side, and getting away from film. I love film still; it was great, but when you're working on a project, you're out there doing 16-hour days, for 2 to 3 months straight. Recruiting, yeah, you can still do 16-hour days, but it's not normal. So for me, and the fact that I was originally in entertainment, and then I went and did technical, startups, had my own place, and then falling back into entertainment on the gaming side for me is just a nice, good, full cycle for me.
That's super cool. So we have all different walks of life, but we all ended up here in the same place, and I'm glad we ended up here. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. It was an amazing episode, probably the best one yet. So thank you all again for joining and supporting this. And happy hunting out there. I hope you all have an amazing 2024, and hopefully it's a great year for all of us.
Great.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you. Appreciate it.